Hi everyone, I'm Trisha Morris at Club Scrap and welcome to part 2 of the triple panel book workshop. If you haven't had a chance to do the homework video, no worries. You can just follow along and watch how this little book comes together and then go back and watch part 1 where you can arrive where we are right now. What have we already done? Well, we've taken the contents of the entire project kit that includes the folding board, a complete Club Scrap Flourish page kit, and we followed all the trimming and scoring instructions and filed them into their assigned pockets. Now, if you don't have this handy accordion pocket file, no worries. Just make sure everything stays organized in one of those 4 pockets. Maybe you'll use a plastic bag or recycled bag or something, or envelopes, or just a way to keep track of each one of these piles. And this is what will make the triple panel book. It has this beautiful front cover, a clever magnetic closure, and I'll really help you figure out how to install that. And then when you open it up, you'll have 3 interactive areas, including trifold area with a hook and loop closure, the center waterfall area, and then this hook and loop closure flap holds the trifolded, or the accordion folded album rather, in place. And you have everything you need to decorate, not one, but both sides of this album, giving you tons of beautiful real estate for this project. It will hold lots and lots of photos from any kind of event. This would be beautiful for a wedding or a shower, anything outdoorsy. So beautiful. Well, let's go ahead and get started. The kit does include a very detailed copy of the instructions, and we've already accomplished everything on page 1, 2, and 3, and we're starting out on page 4 of the instructions. So we've done our trimming and scoring already, thankfully, and here we are. While we're working today, you need a few basic supplies. I'm using a corner chomper, pencil, and awl, and then I use the backside of an old mini mouse pad for some paper piercing. I've added Club Scrap bookbinding glue into the needle tip glue applicator that comes in the kit. I also have scissors, a bone folder, and even this small little 1/2-inch punch. If you happen to have something like this, it's great, but it's not required. As promised from our folder, we'll start with pocket A. So I'll just remove everything from the pocket, and those are the pieces that we need to accomplish step 1, okay? So we'll start out with the piece that we've scored. This is scored on 3 sides to eventually form a pocket. And I have an image in the instructions with a highly detailed illustration of what needs to be trimmed in order to help us make that pocket. Sometimes I find it's helpful to trim on the raised side of the score line rather than the indentation. So if I have it turned this way, my first cut will be made from the second innermost score line. I'm cutting kind of to remove it, and all the way up past the first intersection and to the second intersection. Then I'll start on the last vertical score line, going up and through that intersection as well to the second intersecting score line. Now I'm going to take out this whole entire corner, this whole bit right here, by cutting along the second from the bottom score, and that disappears the corner entirely, and the first score line. Now I have this really long tab. I'm going to get rid of most of it just by trimming along the first score, and that leaves a tab, which is about the size, I'd say, of a chiclet box or something, really small little tab. I'm going to the other end now. I'll cut along the second vertical score line until I cross through the second intersecting line. I'm going to repeat that on the first and stop when I reach that second, and that makes that super long tab, right? Now I'm going to take out this whole corner with one little snip, gone. Then I'm going to get rid of most of the tab, not all of it. Just keep a little chiclet tab there. I don't know if the chiclet box works for you, but it is about that size of a tiny little box, right? Now I'm going to do a little shaping. I'm going to come in from the top edge here and just make a slight angled cut toward the first score line. Boom. I'll do the same thing over on this side. Just a little taper to give us a nice looking hidden flap at the top of the pocket. Next, we need to fold on the score lines, and it's important to remember that the appropriate way to fold on a score line is to bury the bump of the score line on the inside of the fold. So this is the raised area, and I'll fold on it and fold on the second one. And we are working against the grain here. So the folds will be a little bit more difficult. So it's a good thing that they're scored. Now this horizontal fold will be with the grain. And I just chose that because it's the longest fold. Then I'm gonna tuck in those little tabs. And you can start to see that a pocket is about to form. Now the order of assembly is kind of important as we glue this into place. I want to make sure that the side flaps go in first and then the bottom flap. Because when you slide something into the pocket, you don't want it to get caught easily on this. It still might get caught a little bit, but these side tabs kind of prevent that from happening when something's sliding into the box. So always bring, when you're making a pocket like this, always bring those side tabs in first and then the bottom tab up. To do that, let's just get our bookbinding glue from our needle tip applicator, and I'm going to apply the glue into the corners of the bottom flap. That way I know exactly where the glue should be applied in that little 1-inch square area on the bottom tab. I'll do the same on the other side. Just a nice little gentle layer of glue to be applied there. Tuck in those wee little tabs that you made and bring this up. And what you want to try to do is just make sure these sidewalls are at a 90-degree angle. That can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes, so just kind of check at the bottom, see what's happening there. Make sure you're forming a nice closed side there, a nice 90-degree corner at the bottom as well. You can see that needs to be adjusted. And that, my friends, is why I use a liquid glue for this part of the process. It allows me to make those adjustments without, you know, if it's a one and done, that's it. You have no option to fix anything. A liquid glue allows that. Now, what I find to be helpful is if you use our grid ruler to slide it into the pocket, and that's going to help apply some pressure to that raised pocket area and help it bond really well with these vertical flaps. Next, I'll take this larger panel and I'm going to do a test fit. So this pocket is going to sit at the bottom of this panel, and you'll notice right away there's a reveal on the left, the right, and the bottom edges. And it's about 1/8 of an inch. It's going to look really beautiful, to be honest, right? So we need to glue this here by applying adhesive to these 3 flaps. So I'll do that with my needle tip applicator, and you can see I'm spending a lot of time on this. Not really. Just make sure you have a good, but not over crazy. You don't want a lot of dripping going, you want no dripping going on. You just want a nice application of glue. Make sure you get that edge there. Nice thirsty paper here. So now I have that all glued, right? Turn it back over and aim for where you planned. Again, that 1/8 of an inch left, right, and bottom. This is where the ruler trick comes in super handy again. Press, press, press. And that way, all of those little tabs will bond. And that's why you don't want it dripping either. You don't want to pull your ruler out and have it all full of glue, right? You have 2 pieces left. This is the flap for the pocket. Now, with folding board, we disobey all the rules. You know how you have I after E except after C and things like that? There are inconsistencies, and what I have found is that it's best to keep the bump of the score line on the outside of the fold on the folding board. I apologize, but it just works better this way. So here's the bump of my score line on the folding board, whether you're using the white colorway or the black. Make sure that that bump is on the outside when you make this fold. It just works better, okay? The paper doesn't rip, things like that. This is going to be the outside of the flap, and just a decorative option is if you happen to have a corner chomper. I'm going to use mine on the 1/2 inch setting. So after I open the wings, make sure you have the 1/2 inch, slide it in, squeeze, squeeze, and I just did the 2 corners at the bottom of this piece. And while I'm also using my corner chomper, this is designed to nest onto that piece, so I might as well just get that out of the way and get this piece trimmed up, and that fits. So as long as I'm here, I might as well just add that. I don't think I have it in that order in the instructions, but that's okay. Either way, make sure you are applying this to the outside of the flap. This would be the inside of the flap, right? Then you can take this and it's going to be adhered to the back of this panel. So flip it all over. If you really want to be precise, you can use the 0 center of a grid ruler to make sure that it's appropriately placed. So the measurement from the left and the right of center should be 3 1/8. And then I'm going to take this piece and lay it on top, and it should be 1 1/2 on each side. So if I take a pencil and I'm just going to mark where, because no one's going to see the back of this, I'll just clearly mark the landing zone for my piece, and I can maybe give you one more measurement here. It's going to be 1 5/8 from each edge, but I find it just easier to center it and mark it, and now I can make sure I aim to place this piece in the zone, and that way it will be centered. Option 2 is to eyeball it completely. Now, do you see this first score line here? That's where I want the edge of this panel, not the second score line. Don't place that score line in there. You want it past the panel like that. Okay, so the next step is to add glue to the inside of the tab. That's my known area here. The paper is nice and firm, so I can hold it off of my work surface. Then, landing zone marked in the pencil here. I'm going to line it up on the back of the panel with that score line just past the edge of the panel so that the paper can wrap its way around and give me a nice flap that holds the book in place. That'll be inserted inside here. Even if the trifold album gets dipped upside down, the panel will hold it. In your kit, you will find some hook and loop dots, a set of 3. One of the dots is used to secure this, but I prefer to wait until I've got some decoration on the book. Let me show you what I mean. So here we have the pocket on the right, and do you see how I have this panel decorating the pocket, and then this closure sits on top of the panel? Well, that's not in place yet. In fact, I have a green panel and a printed panel here, so I'm just going to wait to add that until later. This section of our triple panel book is complete. I'm going to set it aside out of the way, and we're moving on to whatever we have in store for us in pocket B. I'll pull that out. The first thing I want you to find from this pocket is all of these smaller pages. Each one has a score line that we made earlier, and you see the bump of the score. I just want you to fold along the bumps of all of those score lines. And we're back to our regular rules here. I before E except after C. The bump of the score line goes on the inside of the fold. You can see that I'm simply using the tip of my finger to my thumb and forefinger to just make the crease. This adds a lot of efficiency when you're folding a large number of pages. And then I'll stack them up. You can do this in batches if you want. Here's a batch of 4. Stack them neatly with those flaps down, and then just give it a swipe with your bone folder if you have one. Hopefully you have a good bone folder. Another essential tool. So you see I'm just taking all those flaps and burnishing in batches. And then my last batch of flaps here. Okay. Now we need to find, we have 2 panels, right? One is craft and one is brown, but just in case you're substituting, this is the widest of the 2 panels that we're working with now. And we need to create our waterfall structure. When I attach the panels, I will alternate colors from dark green to light green, dark green, light green. Now at the end of the sort, you'll have an extra dark green. I'm just gonna put that at the end. So don't worry about that, it'll look just fine. So with this piece positioned vertically in front of you, I'm going to take my first page and apply glue to the tab, outside of the tab. And we're going to start by applying it onto this panel from the top edge. Now I want you to check as you attach it. Again, another great reason to use liquid. 1/8 of an inch reveal on all 3 sides, left, right, and top. From here on, this is sort of these edges are your template for placement. never rely on adding it right next to this flap, because sometimes the flap could be off a little bit. We want to make sure that the pages in the book are installed perfectly level. So you might fine tune that, and you'll see in a second maybe how that works. So I'm going to squiggle glue now onto an alternate color. This is the light green, and attach it below the first installed page. And oh, it looks pretty good. Checking the left and right edges for level. And I'm just right up next to the tab of the previous page. Open. Alternating back to the dark green again. Apply my glue. Nice. That's why we include the needle tip applicator. I'm telling you, that thing just works great. The glue can also be used for attaching metal embellishments to paper. Now I want you to see something here. Do you see how this is kind of curving up a little bit? There's a little space here, but from left to the right, I'm level. So you really want to make sure these pages aren't going crooked, and just try to stay as close to, you know, the edges of those tabs as you can, but maintaining that level installation. So again, the bookbinding glue isn't, I use this when I make all of my projects. It's nice for paper to paper, metal to paper, plastic to paper, shoes, shoe heel repair. I mean, we use it for all kinds of things, so just keep this handy. It's really nice for balsa wood projects too. A lot of people who like to build things out of that little balsa wood enjoy the bookbinding glue and the applicator for that too. So just continue on following this template until you reach the bottom, and then I'm going to give you a tip for when you install the very last page. So now I've arrived at my last page, and this is important. When you attach this, just simply pay attention to the bottom part of your panel. So if that means overlapping a little bit more, or there might be a larger gap here, just pay attention to where the left, the bottom, and the right line up with the outside of the page. That way, from when you open that trifold book, you'll be seeing everything lining up exactly as it was designed, even if there were slight errors in that lineup of assembly. So here we go. I've got good placement here. Everything really computed beautifully. And the more practice you get in making this structure, the better the results will be. So you can see I have two dark green back to back, but there's my waterfall looking absolutely beautiful. Again, this is the center cover assembly ready to go. I'll set it aside. This is nice and easy. We've got 2 scored panels remaining from Pocket B. I'll bury the bump of the score line on the inside of the fold. And I'm doing the long flap first, and then I'll bring the narrow flap in. This time there was only 2, so I'll just burnish that right away. Trifold again. Cute. They almost look like little envelopes, and here we have this panel. Now I chose to have my narrow flaps opening on left. If you wanted to do it in opposite directions, you could, or have it all open from the right. I do prefer the natural left side opening in this case. And then let's just do a test run, because here there's a pretty narrow space between these 2 pages in order to have them laying here beautifully. The other option for me would have been to take 1/8 of an inch off of one of these, but I didn't want to do that. So I'm taking my bookbinding glue once again, holding the page that I'm going to be installing in one hand off of my work surface. And I usually do a perimeter. And to be honest, you could probably just use your regular favorite 2-way tape in this situation, but bookbinding glue is so secure and efficient. And then I'll just place that at the top. And then add the second piece in the same way. Making sure again the narrow flap here is on the left, but that is also, of course, designer's choice. It's all your choice, right? Okay. This is the left cover assembly, and I can set that aside, and we've arrived at Pocket C. When you empty Pocket C, you'll find 3 pieces of folding board that are about the same height. There's one that's not scored, one that's a little wider, and one that's a little narrower. So I want you to find the largest one, and perhaps we should even confirm that we have the right piece. It should be 9 by 8 1/4. And lo and behold, it is. I want you to set that piece of paper in front of you. So it's vertical, so it should be 9 inches this way. And the score lines are on the left, and the bumps of the score line are facing up. So again, it's 9 inches this way. These are my score lines, and I can feel the bump, not the indentation, and that's on my left. For this step, you'll need your closure hardware. It's 4 pieces, 2 washers and then 2 clasps, pencil, and your grid ruler. Now, I like to work with the ruler at the 0 center, so this is a 0 right here, and you got 7, 0, 7. I want to measure 2 inches from the left edge of the scored side. So this large bold line is 1 inch, and this large bold line is 2 inches. So now if I just lay it there, I know I'm 2 inches from the edge. Centered is going to be at 4 1/2, since it's a 9-inch piece. So here my reading is 4 1/2, 4 1/2, 0, right? And then this is 2 inches from the edge. And I will mark kind of with a T. I like to do that. So I go right along the ruler's edge, and then I go out to say that's where the 0 is, or that's where my center is. You might want to just double check if you're new to using the ruler like this. If I put the 0 on the edge, I'm exactly 2 inches from it, okay? And I'm exactly 4 1/2 inches from that other little line. Now I'll take one of these little washers. It's pretty small. I'm going to place it so that the left edge of the washer is lined up with the line that I drew, and that those little bars on the washer are horizontal. Then I'll take a pencil and I'm going to mark where those rectangles landed. I'll show you what I have now. Then I'm going to take my little mouse pad, or you can use a cork board. You can use anything that allows you to punch through that surface. And then this is an awl. Use any kind of a pointy tool. You could use a T-pin. You could use a thumbtack or a push pin. And I'm just going to make little punches where those horizontal marks were made. Then make sure you're using a good eraser. Get rid of the pencil line. Now we have to look for the female portion of the clasp. That would be the one with the innie. This is the outie, okay? So look for the one that has the divot in the center, and it has the 2 prongs. I will thread those prongs through the holes that I made with the help of that washer, and just pop it in there. Again, your score lines should be right here, and you're centered. Then flip it over to the back and find that washer again. This is going to help support the paper and keep it really, really strong. That's why I love this hardware so much. I'm using the back end of my awl to spread the prongs nice and flat. And now 1/2 of my clasp is installed. Set that aside for now, and I want you to grab from that same pocket we're working from is this rectangular small piece. Take our grid ruler, and once again, I'll work from the 0 center. I want to draw a line 1/4 inch from the edge and centered, which is going to be 1/2 of an inch from the top and bottom edges. So here I have my ruler in place, my 0 center is here, and I'm 2 cubes, or on the first solid vertical line of the ruler, that's 1/4 of an inch. So I'll make my straight line against the ruler's edge, and then go out this way to make another one of those T's. You can see exactly how that looks. And we're kind of going to do a repeat. Bring in that little washer. I'll set the washer so that the left edge of it lines up with my vertical line and that it's centered. I can see my pencil mark going right through there. And I'll take a pencil and once again draw my rectangles. Bring in my little mouse pad or corkboard or whatever, and I will just make way now for the other piece. This would be a great time to once again erase your pencil marks. And I'll bring in the male portion. This has the little button on the top, and push that into the holes I made with my awl or pokey tool. And now I have that installed. Take the remaining washer that you used here and slide it onto those prongs. By the way, if you like this hardware, we do sell it separately if you want to use it for other projects. Looking at the two corners that are closest to the clasp, I'll come back in with my corner chomper on the 1/2 inch setting, and I will round my corners here. Then I have this other panel that will match the size. I'll round these corners as well. And this is going to cover the washer side of the piece. So I'll take my bookbinding glue here and get that perimeter line really well. Understanding too that we're attaching this to a pretty uneven surface with that washer, so taking special care to have a nice application of adhesive, especially down where it's going to be on top of that washer. So lay it down, liking the liquid glue here again because the bond is going to be so good, and it allows me to adjust if I need to. Now it's time to connect the cover pages to our center section. So basically this centerpiece is not scored, and this will go to the right with the clasp right there. I know it's weird, right? And then this will be on the left. As we're working with folding on the lines to create the spines of our book, make sure that the raised part of the score line goes on the outside of the fold. I know it's weird. It's contrary to everything I teach you, but in this case, it works the best. So go ahead and make the raised portion the outside of the folds you'll make to create the spines of our book. And again, this tab will be adhered and placed on top of the center section, and we want that edge of that back wall to line up with that first score line. So let me show you how that's the best way that I have found is to apply the glue to the tab here. Then I lay it down on top of the base. Just try to line it up as best as you can. Try to get the best view. Liquid glue is essential. So now that I have it situated, I can fine-tune the placement of that. So the edge of the center wall goes up to, but not past, the score line. Then you want to lay it flat, burnish, make your adjustments as needed. So now you have the cover attached. I'm going to try it now this way. I'm going to place the adhesive on the flap of the other cover. And this time I'm just going to lay this down and aim it right from the top here, and that might even be easier. I was finding better ways to do things. So again, I'm lining that tab up right to that first score line without going past it. So now I have my center back wall and a tab on top of it on each side. This is the right side with the clasp here and the left side, and you'll see how it kind of does this. Now we need to attach the other clasp. This took me a long time to develop the best way to do it. So first start by closing the right cover, and then take the piece you prepared that has the other end of the clasp on it and stick it in place and make sure it's as level as possible. And then close the left flap. Now here's where you just want to make sure that you look kind of from the side and make sure these walls, these spines aren't 90 degrees and not like this. You want the book to be nice and squared off when it's closed. Based on that information, that puts my cover right about here when the book is closed, right? With a pencil then, I'm going to mark lightly the line at which that occurs. And this is the area that will be glued to the cover. So here's how I'll do that. I'll apply the glue to the mat, and I'm going to stop when I reach that line. Then I will return the book closed again and line it up near that pencil mark that I made. Double check to make sure you're squared off and everything. Now that's probably not a very good bond, but it's getting it started. Then open, and you can burnish it from this side. So you got a nice sturdy sandwich there with your clasp in place. There's one more piece of paper in your pocket, C, and that obviously is the nest for the outside front cover. And this too, I could use my regular adhesive, but I'm choosing to use my bookbinding glue, again, because it's sturdy, it's efficient, economical, all the things we love about our adhesive of choice. I can place that now down in the center. You could also install it when it's flat, might be a little bit easier to burnish at least. We're getting down to some of the final steps here. We've done so much of the work already. So let's open this, making sure that your clasp, this is on the right, this is on the left, and you'll be able to tell which sections go where. You've got your pocket on the right, your waterfall in the center, and your trifold pages on the left. Let's start with the center. So I'll take the waterfall section and once again use the bookbinding glue to apply a nice layer. Okay, layer that down in there. I'm checking my score lines. You're covering up the tabs so nobody will know it's there, and you're right in between the innermost score lines in the center of your album. Then on the right, do the same thing and apply glue to the back of this section with the pocket. Lay it back down, making sure you stay free of the spine. Do not put any section in that scored 3/4 inch area, or you won't be able to open your book properly. That would be a really big disappointment after all of this work, right? And of course, we're going to use our ruler trick that we learned earlier to slide that down into the pocket to get that bottom section burnished. Burnishing over the clasp and stuff too there. Covering that all up, which is kind of nice. Then, of course, the left section of the book. So I will take this last trifold page. Always get that perimeter. That goes on that left section. Again, avoid the spine. Like, stay away from it completely. If it's in the spine, it won't open and close properly. We've arrived at a really beautiful place, haven't we? Now, what to put in the pocket? Let's resolve that too. So while we do that, let's close the book. Oh, just makes me really happy to look at that. Bring in my pocket D. Here we just have a few sheets of paper in there, so this is going to be easy. When we scored these larger sheets of paper, we did a flip, thus creating an indentation and a bump. So you need to fold according to the direction of that score line. So here I will fold to bury that bump. Now I got a bump on this side, so let's bury it. And when you do make that fold, make sure that the paper is folding exactly in half. Don't trust your score line. Repeat that for the print. I'll bring this one in. And then when I fold in half here, I just want to make sure it's nice and even. And one of these pieces will have the tab removed. We won't need it, so, but for now I'm still going to fold on the tab so that I can make sure this is nice and level before I make my crease. So burying the bump of the score on the inside of the fold puts the print on the outside. Lovely. Now we just need to connect these in a pleasing way that we want in order to make that accordion. So I'll start with this guy. And here we have what I would call a free edge. This edge does not have the little tab, and this edge does. So I'm going to apply glue to this flap and attach it to the free edge on my pages, okay? And I'm going to keep this closed so that when I do attach it, it's going to be stacked very neatly. Flip it back over and add my adhesive, again, liquid, because I want to be able to adjust it if I don't land perfectly. So again, this is the tab-free edge. Place it on top, just a stack. And then now just make sure it's really nice and neat before you bond those edges together. You want to make sure all of this is level and even. And now our cover will expand, right? And we just need to add this next one. Now here's a tab. Let's place this down so we have a non-scored tab here. It's over here, right? We have our tab here and we're going to lay it on top of this. So just keeping track of where you are. Apply the glue and lay it right back down. Don't hang out too long. You want to make sure you can adjust this so it's nice and level on all the sides. This tab has nothing to be stuck to. So I'm going to grab my trimmer and let's just open that up. Open this, slide it in, and I'm just going to cut on the edge of that score line to remove it. And now our little book is kind of ready to go, and you can decide what you want the top or the bottom to be, however you want that to work. But basically every surface of this will be decorated and it can open from both ends. Let's re-enter with our book, open it up, and then this should slide in here. Eventually you'll add your closure. I want to show you how to do that. Of the pieces, if they are together like this, just cut off one set. So it's the hook and the loop. I like to do the hook on the top. So to determine your hook, the hook part is the scratchy part and the loop is the soft part. So when I attach this, I will remove the backing from the hook side. Then attach it to the back of this flap. You can even do that now with the loop attached. When this is decorated and just as you want it, remove the backing from the loop side and then close it nice and centered. Make sure that this is nice and level, push down, and just let it sit for a second to cure. Then that will be a nice firm attachment for you. The same is true over here on the left edge. Once this is decorated and this is decorated the way you want, put the hook with the loop attached to it here, remove the backing and close, and it will perfectly place those items. To review, it'll work like this. But again, I didn't add these things until this was applied and I had this all decorated here. So I had panels, nesting panels that I trimmed from my scraps to make all that work together. Before we wrap up our assembly, I'm going to show you how to install those metal corners that came in the kit. Let's take those. Now, right now they are a little bit wider than a 90-degree corner. I'm going to shrink those a little bit by pushing inward on the V shape. Oop, not that far. Just a little bit to give it a really nice solid 90 degrees. Then with the tip of my bookbinding glue needle tip applicator, I will add some glue to the inside of that channel. And let's isolate this front cover for the time being. I'll place this onto the corner. Then I'll take the end or the tip of a bone folder or an awl and just give it a little crimp. Maybe the heel of my bone folder, or any tool you can find. They make tools that do that crimp the corners, but it's really not necessary. You can, if you would like, you can do it from the back side as well. Just make sure it's crimped tightly down. And that really will really up your game, but also make that corner more sturdy. You've got another piece for the other corner here, and then the other end of the book as well. That has the pocket. It can be a little tricky. Just kind of gently crimp as best as you can with that pocket in place. And I advise you to crimp from both sides. So flip it back on over and get the other side in place. And of course, repeat for the other end. With those golden corners in place, now the world is your oyster. I'm not sure if you remember, if you did the homework from part 1 of this, you will be left with all of the pieces that remain from your Flourish page kit. And that includes 2 full prints and your 2 sheets of cut aparts that can easily be adapted to the size of your book. In fact, that's how we design. Usually if there's text on one of our page kit cut aparts, even though we have 12 inches to work with, we bunch the text up into shorter areas so that they can be adapted more easily to cards, to projects like this, to books of almost any size. This element ended up being matted and added to the front cover. So let me just show you a couple of the finishing touches here. We've got our finished book with our cover. I added the key embellishment that's included in the Flourish page kit to the handle when you open up from the clasp. You can see another portion of a print was added. And I did use this 1/2 inch punch to create a little slot for the clasp to meet. Now in the middle, again, elements were adapted to fit. I've got more of that print added to the pocket. And this entire little booklet was enhanced with the addition of the scraps unused, as well as the photo mats that came in the kit. For the white side of the print that was here before, that's gone. I've nested it with the leftovers from the print or other pieces that we trimmed, and everything is going to nest together perfectly. Just use your ruler, get your measurement that you need, and then subtract 1/4 inch for these nesting pieces. It's quite easy. And your book will be decorated beautifully with a title even on each side. You can incorporate the ribbons, the charms, the tags that were included. They fit beautifully on the left cover of the trifold. And again, more scraps used to nest onto those pages. And you've got a gorgeous finished book. Now, if you like this and you have other Club Scrap page kits, you can easily substitute 1 for 1 and adapt. This is the same kit with the white folding board paired up with Club Scrap's Surf Shop collection. You can see the decorated cover, little charm here again on the clasp. And when you open it up, you've got more art here and this same exact structure with all the fun pages on the inside. I just love how this came out. I love the colors. It's gonna be so fun for a little trip our family took. And then your pocket, again, with the adorable little album inside. Decorated from both sides. So it's like it has 2 front covers. Look at that fun page. So you just follow the same principles you follow when you're making a scrapbook page, but just on a little bit of a smaller scale. And here too, we have our covers with lots of real estate as well for tons of featured photos. We have the black folding board colorway as well with silver hardware. You're gonna love this with the mariachi page kit from Club Scrap. Again, a gorgeous decorated album can fit on the inside with all kinds of the photo mats and cut aparts used to finish it up and make it look complete. You'll never be at a loss of things to use for embellishing. I sincerely hope you enjoyed our time together making the triple panel book. I have a lot more workshops in the works, as well as a repertoire of tons of projects from the past. Feel free to explore, join our YouTube channel, our Facebook private chat group, and most importantly, join Club Scrap. We have a page kit and a card kit that releases every single month, and we'd love to have you be a part of our family. The price can't be beat, and it's a wonderful community to be a part of. We'll see you soon.